If your body is tired, but your mind is still moving, let this be the moment when you stop asking yourself to do one more thing before rest can begin. If the room is quiet, and yet your thoughts feel louder because of that quiet, you are not strange, and you are not failing at peace. Many nights feel like this. The body has come to bed, but the heart is still standing. The shoulders are still carrying. The mind is still checking doors that are already closed, replaying words that cannot be unsaid, and trying to get ahead of tomorrow before tomorrow has even arrived. And if some part of you feels as though it must remain inwardly awake, guarding, measuring, and bracing, hear this gently now. You do not have to solve tonight before rest begins. You do not have to become calm enough for God to come near. You do not have to arrive already peaceful in order to be held. Rest does not begin when you become better at resting. It begins when the shepherd is already keeping watch. So for these moments, you do not need to fix the whole story of your life. You do not need to make sense of every ache. You do not need to untie every knot of fear, grief, or unfinished thought. You are allowed to be tired here. You are allowed to be unsure here. You are allowed to let the night be a night and not a courtroom where you must argue yourself into safety. Because before you have found the perfect words, before your breathing has slowed all the way, before your thoughts have grown quiet, the shepherd is already near. The Lord is my shepherd, not first a subject to master, not first a line to analyze, not first a framed verse hanging on a wall. Tonight it is a doorway. Tonight it is a place to lie down inside. Tonight it is the gentle truth that there is one who knows how to lead the weary, and who does not mistake weariness for weakness, and who does not despise the creature who has come to the end of striving for the day. The Lord is my shepherd. It is the kind of sentence that asks less from you than many other sentences do. It does not tell you to rise and prove something. It does not tell you to gather impressive strength. It does not tell you to perform spiritual brightness while the heart is tired. It gives you a shepherd before it gives you a demand. It gives you a keeper before it gives you a task. It gives you presence before it offers explanation. And perhaps that is why this psalm has become a place of refuge for so many hearts across so many generations. Because it speaks, not with the sharpness of a command shouted across a distance, but with the steadiness of nearness. It sounds like someone who has been led and fed and found and kept. It sounds like someone who knows what fear is, but has learned what companionship is. It sounds like someone who has walked through night and discovered that darkness did not get the final word. So let the room around you soften now. You do not need to force an image. Just let the words begin to open. Let them open slowly. Let modern edges blur a little. Let the pressure of this day loosen its grip a little. Let the walls of the room remain where they are, but let another place begin to come gently into view, as though Scripture were opening, not away from your night, but right through it. The air is cooler there. Evening has stretched itself over low hills. The light that remains is quiet and gray gold, thin and gentle, with none of the noon's insistence left in it. The day has not vanished suddenly. It has thinned. It has relaxed. Long grass is no longer bright beneath a hard sun. Stones hold only the last memory of warmth. Wind moves softly through scrub and olive branches. And somewhere nearby, there is the hush of animals settling, because the one who tends them is close. Not far off, a sheepfold rests against the slope of the land. It is simple, stone gathered into a low enclosure, an opening narrow enough to guard and wide enough to receive. Nothing elaborate, nothing made for admiration. It exists for shelter, for belonging, for the ordinary mercy of being gathered in before night deepens. Sheep drift inward one by one. Their movements are not hurried now. The wandering of the day is over. Their hooves sound lightly against packed earth and scattered stone. They know this pattern. They know what it means to be brought in. Dust has settled along their wool. Their steps have carried them far enough. Some hesitate at the entrance only long enough to look, to sense, to recognize. Then they enter. They do not explain why they trust. They know the posture of the shepherd's presence. They know the feel of being watched over by someone who is not threatened by the dark. And there he is, not dramatic, not grand in the way power on earth often tries to be grand. He does not need to multiply gestures in order to be believed. There is a steadiness to him that quiets the space around him. He sees what enters the fold. He notices what limps a little. He knows who has been slower today. He knows who startled too easily on the path. He knows what the heat took out of each one. He does not count with cold efficiency. He receives with familiarity. His hands are weathered from ordinary faithfulness. His pace is unforced. His attention is whole. There is no part of him that feels scattered. He is not half present. He is not elsewhere in his mind. He is here, entirely here. And what a mercy it is to be near someone whose presence is not frayed. One sheep lingers just outside, reluctant in the dimming light, distracted by some small movement farther down the hill. The shepherd does not raise his voice in sharp irritation. He steps toward it, not with panic, not with embarrassment, but with the calm of someone who has done this many times before. A hand near the shoulder, a gentle turn, a word too quiet to make out, but not too quiet to calm, and the animal yields. Not because it has been overpowered into terror, but because it has been met by one whose nearness is known. This is how the psalm begins to teach rest. Not by scolding you for your vigilance, not by shaming your tired mind, but by showing you a presence strong enough that constant self-guarding can begin, little by little, to loosen. Perhaps your own mind has wandered at the edge of the fold tonight. Perhaps some thought keeps circling outside the gate. Something you should have said, something you fear is coming, some grief that waits until dark to speak more loudly, some uncertainty with too many branches, some burden that has trained your heart to stay alert long after alertness can no longer help. The shepherd is not confused by this. He does not meet the weary with offense. He knows how creatures tremble after long strain. He knows how the mind keeps scanning when the soul has been stretched thin. He knows that some hearts lie down with great difficulty, not because they do not trust at all, but because they have been carrying much for a very long time. The fold grows quieter as the last of the light thins. Inside, the earth smells faintly of grass and dust and old stone releasing the day. A few animals shift, then settle. A few breaths come fast at first, then slow. Night in the hills is not empty. It holds distant sounds, small movements, the hush of wind through dry stems, the occasional call of something far away. Yet here, within the boundary of being kept, those sounds do not have to be interpreted as a summons to fear. The shepherd takes his place at the opening, not because the sheep have done enough to deserve such guarding, not because each one has proven attentiveness, not because none of them ever strayed that day. He keeps watch because that is who he is in relation to them. His care is not improvised. It is not reluctant. It is not experimental. He is a shepherd, and the sheep sleep because he remains awake. There is such tenderness in that arrangement. You, who may feel as if you must remain inwardly on duty at all times, hear the quiet mercy of this. The fold rests because the shepherd watches. The safety of the night does not depend on the sheep becoming expert guardians of themselves. It depends on the one whose calling includes the keeping of the flock. The Lord is my shepherd. Say it softly inside your own heart if you like. The Lord is my shepherd. The sentence grows gentler as it repeats, not because it becomes vague, but because it becomes inhabited. The Lord Not chance, the Lord. Not your own exhausted vigilance, the Lord. Not the spinning wheel of every possible outcome. The Lord is my shepherd. There is relationship here. There is belonging here. There is the strange relief of not being an orphaned creature in a vast and indifferent night. Outside the fold, the sky deepens from gray to blue-black. A first star appears, then another, small and clear. The land becomes simpler after sunset. What was scattered in daylight gathers into shape and shadow. The shepherd remains where he is. He is not restless. He does not keep glancing elsewhere, as though tempted away from his charge. He is enough for the place because his whole self is given to it. This is not the only place in Scripture where God is shown as a keeper. But tonight, Psalm 23 opens that truth in a way the tired can bear. It opens not with thunder, but with care. It does not begin by demanding a theology of suffering from you. It does not begin by asking you to interpret every valley. It begins with the shepherd. Presence first, nearness first, belonging first, and that is mercy. Because some nights, the heart can receive presence long before it can receive explanation. A lamb, smaller than the rest, lowers itself awkwardly to the ground, folding thin legs under a body still learning ease. Another nestles into the curve of another's side. A few stand for a while, their ears turning toward sounds beyond the stone wall. Then, reassured by what does not change at the gate, they settle too. Rest spreads through a flock, not only by comfort in the body, but by confidence in the one who guards. What if peace comes that way for you tonight? Not all at once, not by force, not by the triumph of one brilliant thought, but by being near enough to the shepherd's steadiness that your own inward weather begins to change. Not because every uncertainty has vanished, not because every outer danger has been explained away, but because someone trustworthy is at the opening. Someone alert where you are tired, someone faithful where you are thin, someone present where you have felt alone. The wind moves again through the grass beyond the fold. The hills breathe their long, slow, nighttime breath. Somewhere, a night bird cries once and is quiet. The world has not ceased to be a world, yet within the nearness of the shepherd, the creatures entrusted to him do not have to carry the whole map of danger in their minds. They are not omniscient, and they are not asked to be. They are kept by one who knows more than they do, sees farther than they do, and remains kinder than their fear expects. Stay here a little longer. Let the sentence lie over you like a blanket that does not smother, only warms. The Lord is my shepherd. You are not told tonight that you must be your own shepherd. You are not told to carry yourself into safety alone. You are not told to become unbreakable. You are not told to keep every watch by yourself. The psalm does not begin by praising the strength of the sheep. It begins by naming the faithfulness of the shepherd. And because he is near, the night changes. Not into fantasy, not into a world without shadows, but into a held night, a watched night, a night that can be entered gently rather than conquered, a night in which the weary may begin to unclench because someone wiser remains at the gate. So breathe there for a moment. Let the fold remain simple. Let the stars remain small and steady. Let the shepherd remain where he is, and let your heart hear, perhaps more deeply than before, that rest is not something you manufacture out of perfect inner conditions. Rest is received. Rest is allowed. Rest grows in the presence of one who keeps watch without tiring, and who is not startled by the sound of your weariness. The hills remain quiet. The fold remains gathered. The shepherd remains near. And because he remains, the night no longer asks everything from you. The stillness deepens, not into emptiness, but into care. Cool air rests over the ground. Grass along the slope has gone nearly silver under the starlight. The space inside the fold is close and calm. Breath rises and falls. The earth holds weight without complaint. Nothing in this moment is hurried. Nothing asks you to prove that you belong here. You are not carrying the whole night alone. Let that be enough for now. And from within this held quiet, the psalm begins to move. Morning does not come all at once. It arrives as a paling along the edge of the hills, a faint softening of the east, a light so gentle it seems at first like a memory rather than a beginning. The flock stirs slowly. No one jerks awake into violence, no trumpet of urgency. The shepherd rises before the sheep fully do, not because he values them less than his own sleep, but because love has always known how to wake first when care is needed. The world in first light is washed clean of hardness. Dew clings to blades of grass. Stones are cool and dark. The air carries the scent of soil, wild herbs pressed underfoot, and water somewhere not far away. One by one the sheep rise, shake dust from their wool, and gather themselves around the familiar center of the shepherd's presence. There is no confusion in the way they orient. Their day begins not with self-invention, but with following. He leads them out by paths known through long attention. The hills open in low folds of land, and the first light stretches gently across them. Nothing yet is hot. Nothing yet is strained. A calm rests over the earth like a blessing that does not need to announce itself. The shepherd walks ahead, staff in hand, pausing when needed, looking often, adjusting pace for the smallest and the tiredest. He is not interested in proving how quickly he can move a flock. He is interested in bringing them where they can live. He makes me lie down in green pastures. The words arrive like cool water on a fevered brow, not because they are sentimental, but because they describe a kind of care many hearts have forgotten how to expect. There is a difference between surviving and being led where one may truly rest. A difference between merely stopping and being brought into provision. A difference between collapse and pasture. The grass here is not the brittle remnant of drought. It is not sparse and uncertain. It gathers thick in the low places where moisture held through the heat, where the ground remained kind enough to nourish. Dew pearls at the tips. Each step darkens the green with movement. The sheep lower their heads and begin to feed. Not frantically, not as if this must be the last goodness they ever see, but with the steady confidence that the shepherd has not led them wrongly. How quietly profound that is, to be guided, not merely away from danger, but toward nourishment, to be brought where the body may receive, to discover that the one who leads also prepares. Perhaps so much of your life has felt like output, giving, answering, managing, enduring, showing up, calculating, holding together, staying ready. Perhaps even in rest there has often been an undercurrent of strain, as though stillness itself had become another task to perform correctly. But the pasture does not ask the sheep to create grass. The water does not ask the thirsty to become streams. Provision is given. The shepherd knows where it is, and he leads them there. The flock spreads slowly through the green. Some graze near the edges at first, uncertain by habit, as if expecting interruption. Others move deeper, finding the richest patches. The shepherd watches the whole field, attentive not only to threats from beyond, but to weariness within. He is not absent during nourishment. He does not deliver the sheep to provision and then wander off. His presence remains part of the gift. This too is the Lord's kindness. He does not simply point from a distance toward what is good. He accompanies. A lamb, younger and lighter, keeps lifting its head between bites, checking, locating, remembering. There is trust in that repeated glance. The shepherd is still there. His outline moves against the morning light. The nearness that guarded the fold in darkness now guides through openness. Care did not end with the night. It has changed form, but not heart. He leads me beside still waters. Now the sound becomes clearer, the small, delicate sound of water, not rushing in violence, but resting in its course. A shallow pool gathers where a narrow stream widens and slows. Reeds lean at the edges, their reflections wavering on the surface. The morning air is cooler there. Light touches the water and breaks softly into movement. No crashing torrent, no force that would frighten the flock. Still waters. Waters fit for creatures who startle easily and thirst deeply. The sheep approach in stages. First the scent of it, then the sound, then the sight. Hooves sink slightly into damp ground at the edge. Heads lower. Mouths touch the surface. Ripples widen. Thirst beats what it has needed, and there is no urgency in the water's reply. It is enough. It remains. It receives without protest the repeated coming of the thirsty. If your own soul has felt dry, this is where the psalm slows, so that dryness may be noticed without shame. The Lord is not impatient with need. He does not scold thirst out of those he made dependent. He does not meet depletion with contempt. He leads toward what restores. He restores my soul. The line is so familiar that it could almost pass by unheard. But in the field and at the water, it regains texture. Restoration is not merely a religious phrase. It is what happens when a frightened creature discovers safe ground. It is what happens when thirst is answered. It is what happens when the body no longer has to brace every moment. It is what happens when a mind that has been scanning the horizon can focus, for a little while, on the nearness of water and the steadiness of care. One sheep drinks long, then lifts its head slowly, drops falling from its mouth back into the pool. Another stands in the reed's shadow, letting the coolness of the place quiet its agitation. A few lie down in the grass nearby, not fully asleep, but softened. Their breathing changes. Bodies that were ready to bolt learn, a repeated experience of safety, that stillness may be trusted. Restoration often enters like that, modestly, physically, gradually, not always with fanfare. Not always in a moment one could easily describe. Sometimes it comes by the accumulation of ordinary mercies under faithful care. The shepherd moves among them with unforced authority. He checks a hoof here, brushes away a thorn there, watches the edge of the field, notes the changes in light. He knows that provision must be more than abundance. It must also be safe enough to receive. Green pasture without a steady shepherd nearby would not be enough for sheep that fear. Still water without someone to guard would not fully soothe creatures trained by danger. Restoration is not only the presence of good things, it is the experience of those good things within protective nearness. This is why the psalm speaks so gently to the weary. It does not promise spectacle. It offers enoughness. Grass, water, guidance, presence. A body allowed to lie down, a soul restored, not by brilliant achievement, but by steady care. The day lengthens. Sunlight warms the upper edges of the field. The dew withdraws little by little. Bees work quietly among small flowers tucked between blades of grass. Insects hum in the growing light. The sheep graze, rest, drink, rise, and settle again. Their life under the shepherd is not frantic novelty. It is a rhythm of being led into what sustains. What if some part of your heart has forgotten that this too is holy? Not only breakthrough, not only rescue, not only the dramatic turning of obvious crisis, but the daily provision that keeps a life from withering. The meal that steadies, the breath that deepens, the scripture that does not dazzle but nourishes. The presence of God that does not always announce itself with thunder, yet remains faithful enough to carry you through one more day, one more evening, one more night. He makes me lie down. Notice the tenderness there. Sheep do not lie down easily when they feel threatened. They remain on alert. They stand, they scatter, they startle. To lie down is to enter trust at the level of the body. The shepherd's care becomes so reliable that muscles release. The ground is accepted as support rather than suspicion. The creature stops negotiating with danger for a little while and yields to rest. You do not always know how much your own body has been holding until it is brought near some measure of safety. Shoulders come down a little, jaw unclenches a little. The chest learns a slower pattern. Thought does not disappear, but it loosens its grip. The Lord's mercy often reaches not only the abstract soul, but the living body that has carried fear for too long. The flock moves farther through the pasture as the shepherd leads. Never quickly, always with a sense of destination that does not have to be explained. There are places where grass has grown sweeter, where small hollows hold shade longer, where the ground dips toward a second pool fed by the same stream. The shepherd knows these details because care attends to particularity. He does not care for sheep in theory. He cares for this flock on this day, along these slopes, with these needs, under this sky. There is such comfort in being known specifically, not as a category, not as a problem to solve in general, but as a soul seen in your actual weariness, your actual history, your actual fears, your actual longings, your actual limits. The shepherd of Psalm 23 is not an abstract emblem of care. He is the Lord who tends, leads, and restores with personal attention. He knows where you tire. He knows what drains you. He knows what quiet has become difficult for you. He knows how grief can rise again when the world goes dark. He knows what tomorrow threatens in your mind, and none of that makes him step back. One small rise of land beyond the water catches light more brightly now. The shepherd lifts his face toward it, measuring the day. He is always aware of what comes next, though the sheep need not be. And perhaps that too is part of provision. The flock receives the present while the shepherd keeps watch over what lies ahead. Their life depends not on foresight in every direction, but on following one who sees farther. A light breeze moves over the surface of the water, and the reeds answer with a whisper. Shadows shift under a nearby olive tree. The field holds its own patient music. Chewing, breathing, the occasional soft call, the small click of stones under a hoof. Nothing in this place urges haste. The kingdom of God often comes near in precisely such unthreatening ways, by the sanctifying of ordinary dependence. The shepherd pauses by one sheep that is not settled well. Perhaps its flank bears a hidden tenderness. Perhaps a burr in its wool has agitated it. He kneels. Fingers work gently through tangled fibers. A thorn is found, removed. The sheep startles slightly at first, then stills under practiced hands. Sometimes restoration means grand deliverance. Sometimes it means one thorn no one else noticed being taken away by the one who notices more than anyone else. He restores my soul. The phrase deepens. He restores by feeding. He restores by watering. He restores by noticing. He restores by leading. He restores by staying near. There is no harshness in his competence, no anxiety in his strength. He is not offended that sheep require care. He built his life around that reality. And the Lord, who is your shepherd, is not offended that you need mercy more than once, more than 10 times, more than 1,000 times. He does not grow embarrassed by your humanity. He does not find your dependence inconvenient. He formed you from dust. He remembers that you are dust. And he bends close with the gentleness of one who knows what he has made. The light shifts toward late morning. The flock gathers again at the shepherd's movement, leaving behind what is already nourished. There is no panic in leaving, because provision is not imagined to be finished forever. The shepherd who found grass once will find it again. The shepherd who led to water once will lead again. Trust grows, not only from one dramatic experience, but from repeated faithfulness remembered in the body. A final look at the pool. Sun now scattered in fragments on its surface, reeds lifting and bowing, the damp edges marked by many hoofprints, evidence of creatures who came needy and left steadier. And perhaps that is what you are allowed to be tonight before God. Not impressive, not all figured out, simply a creature who came thirsty and who may leave steadier because the shepherd led you beside still waters. So rest in that image a little longer. Cool water, not hurrying. Grass soft enough to hold weight. A hand practiced in kindness. A day beginning under care, not under threat. The soul is not restored by being pushed harder through exhaustion. It is restored in the shepherd's presence, among provisions that match real need. And even now, as this song carries you onward, let there be no shame if you feel the ache of how much you have needed exactly this. Need is not the opposite of faith. Need is often the place where the shepherd's care becomes most visible. The field quiets again in the fullness of day. A few sheep lie down in the shade, necks stretched, eyes half closed. Others graze slowly in the farther grass. Water still gathers itself in patient silence. Above, the sky is broad and clear. Nothing forces the scene. Everything belongs. And so, for a moment, may you breathe as one who does not have to wring life from barren ground by your own effort. May you breathe as one led toward enoughness. May you breathe as one for whom provision is not a distant idea, but a shepherding reality. Because the Lord is your shepherd, there is grass for the weary. Because the Lord is your shepherd, there is water for the thirsty. Because the Lord is your shepherd, restoration need not be dramatic to be real. The breeze eases, the pasture shines, the flock grows still, and somewhere beneath the surface of all your thoughts, something begins to loosen. The day moves on, light climbs higher, then softens as clouds pass in thin white veils overhead. The shepherd does not let the flock remain forever in one place, not because rest was false, but because good care includes movement as well as stillness. Pasture nourishes for a time. Then the path opens again. Some sheep rise readily. Others linger in the comfort of the grass. The shepherd gives them the small space needed to gather themselves, then calls them forward, not with harshness, but with a sound long familiar. The flock begins to move. Hooves press new tracks through earth and dry patches of thyme and wild mint. The scent of crushed herbs lifts into the warm air. The field recedes behind them, still green in the low light, while the terrain ahead narrows into a path curling around the hillside. He leads me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. There is movement in that line, but no frenzy. The path is not a highway. It is not wide. It does not reveal the whole journey at once. It winds. It disappears around bends. It rises toward one ridge, then slips down the far side where only the shepherd knows what waits. Stones shift underfoot. Dust gathers at the edges. Shade appears and disappears with the movement of the sun. There are stretches where the flock can see only the next few steps clearly. How like life that is. So often the anxious mind longs for the whole map. It wants every turn visible, every danger labeled, every outcome settled before the next step is taken. It wants not only guidance, but control. Not only care, but certainty. Yet the life of the flock under the shepherd does not work that way. The sheep are not handed a complete account of the terrain. They are given something both humbler and, in another way, more secure. The shepherd himself, walking ahead. The path narrows where the hillside steepens. Loose stones lie scattered like pale bones of the earth. Dry grass brushes against wool as the flock moves single file through the tighter places. A young lamb hesitates at a ledge where the footing looks uncertain. The shepherd turns back, not annoyed, but attentive. He steps beside the lamb, taps the safer stone with the end of his staff, waits, then moves again. The little one follows. Guidance so often is like that. Not a lecture shouted from a distance, but a presence close enough to show where to place the next trembling foot. Paths of righteousness. The phrase can sound severe when heard too quickly, as though it were mainly about perfect moral performance. But out here, under the shepherd's hand, righteousness first feels like rightness, the fitting way, the faithful path, the way that leads toward life and not toward cliffs, toward good pasture and not barren traps, toward safe passage rather than slow harm. The shepherd leads in what is right, not to burden the flock, but to preserve it. There are side tracks too, faint traces where animals have wandered before, places where a patch of greener growth tempts from a distance, where shade seems deeper, where the ground looks easier. But the shepherd does not follow every appealing opening. He knows which turns end in bramble, which hollows hold danger after rain, which ridges expose the flock to threats they cannot see from below. His refusal is part of his mercy. Sometimes the sheep do not understand the refusal. A few drift toward a side incline where scrub is thick and sweet-smelling. The shepherd draws them back with a firm movement of staff and voice, not cruelly, not theatrically, but clearly. He does not apologize for redirecting them away from what would trouble them. The path he chooses is not always the one that first appears pleasant. It is the one shaped by knowledge deeper than theirs. That too is a kindness for the restless heart to remember. The Lord's guidance may not always satisfy your hunger for immediate explanation, but it is not random. It is not careless. It is not indifferent to your actual good. The sheep do not need to understand the whole land in order to be led through it well. Wind moves along the ridge now, warmer than it was in the pasture below. Grasses lean in one direction, then settle back. The flock follows the contour of the hill where the path bends around a stand of low trees. For a while, the line of travel is hidden from all but the shepherd at the front and a few behind him. Those farther back must rely on the continuity of movement, the remembered faithfulness of his leading, and the simple fact that his pace remains trustworthy, even when the next turn cannot yet be seen. How many nights has your own mind wanted to run ahead of the shepherd? Just to know, just to make sure, just to secure the next ridge before you arrive. And how often has that running ahead given not peace, but greater exhaustion? The psalm does not mock the desire to know, but it quietly relocates peace from full foresight to faithful leading. The shepherd sees farther than the sheep, and bears the burden of that sight himself. A cloud passes over the sun, and the land cools for a moment. The path dips into a hollow where shade lingers. Here the ground is firmer. A small trickle of water has once crossed this way, leaving smoother stones under the dust. Hooves place themselves carefully. The shepherd does not hurry the descent. He adjusts. He waits for those behind to catch up. He pauses when the flock compresses too tightly. Good leading is not impatient with slowness. It accounts for weakness without despising it. Perhaps that is another mercy for you tonight. The Lord is not embarrassed by the pace at which you are healing. He is not ashamed of the speed at which you are learning trust. He does not measure you by the sharp urgency of the world. The shepherd's pace is shaped by love, not vanity. He does not need to demonstrate efficiency to impress the hills. The path widens again as the flock emerges from the shaded dip. Ahead lies a stretch of open slope patterned with pale rock, small shrubs, and lines of earth worn by seasons of passing feet. The shepherd knows this route. His body carries the memory of it. He knows where the sun will hit hard in another hour, where a sheltered spot waits beyond that cluster of stones, where the trail edges too close to a drop farther on, where a gentler crossing may be found if he turns sooner. For his name's sake, there is such depth in that small phrase. The shepherd leads rightly, because his very character is bound up with care. His name is not detached from his actions. The goodness of his leading reflects who he is. He does not guide well merely when circumstances are easy or when the flock has earned it. He guides according to his own nature. And the Lord, whose covenant faithfulness fills Scripture, leads his people not on the whim of passing mood, but out of the steadiness of his own name. This means that your hope does not finally rest in the consistency of your own following. It rests in the consistency of his character. The flock continues. Midday light glances off stone and brightens the dust. Insects rise and fall in patches over dry weeds. The shepherd's shadow stretches and shrinks with the contour of the land. Behind him, the flock keeps on. Not because each sheep is brave, but because trust has been schooled into them by repeated goodness. There are moments when one sheep pauses too long, distracted by a movement below. Another presses toward the front with restless urgency. Another veers toward a clump of thorny brush. The shepherd handles each according to need. A redirection here, a pause there, a touch of the staff not as violence, but as boundary. Care has texture. It is not vague. It knows how to steady, how to interrupt, how to protect from both panic and wandering. Such guidance can be hard to welcome when the heart longs simply to go where impulse points. Yet how many unseen mercies are woven into the nose of God? How many steep losses has he turned you from without your fully knowing? How many harmful paths has he blocked, not to impoverish you, but to preserve something you could not see was at risk? The sheep do not celebrate every redirection in the moment. But the shepherd's wisdom is not measured by the sheep's instant approval. Still, he is never harsh for the pleasure of being obeyed. That is not his heart. His authority serves life. His firmness belongs to his tenderness. The same hand that leads to water also turns from ravines. The same staff that guides an open pasture also intervenes at dangerous edges. Love is not less gentle because it is clear. The land keeps unfolding in modest turns. A cluster of stones casts a patch of shade where the flock pauses again. Some lie down briefly. Others stand chewing in the stillness. The shepherd looks out over a farther valley, measuring light and distance. There is no anxiety in him, only attentiveness. To the sheep, the path may seem uncertain because it is partial. To the shepherd, it is a known way through a larger whole. That is where so much of trust must live for creatures like us, not in the possession of total understanding, but in the acceptance that we are being led by one who is not confused. We do not have the whole ridgeline. We do not see beyond every bend. We do not know all that lies ahead in our families, our bodies, our work, our grief, our unanswered prayers. But the Lord is not staring into the future with the same uncertainty we feel. He leads from knowledge we do not carry. A small flock of birds lifts suddenly from a thicket below, flashing white at the edge of their wings, before they disappear into the farther trees. Several sheep startle. Heads rise, bodies tense. The shepherd turns at once, voice low and steady, presence enough to keep surprise from turning to chaos. Soon the line settles again. Not all disturbances signal disaster. Sometimes the heart only needs the reassurance of a steady leader to keep from interpreting every sudden movement as the end of peace. The path descends now into a narrower passage between two dark rock faces. The air there is cooler. Shadows gather earlier. The flock compresses as the space tightens. The shepherd's staff touches the ground in measured rhythm. Tap, step, tap, step. A sound the sheep know. A sound that says the one ahead is here. 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 Guidance can be that simple in lived experience. Not always a map, but a rhythm. Not always a flood of clarity, but the repeated faithfulness of God across days enough to teach the heart his tread. The passage opens again. Light widens over the flock. A gentler slope waits beyond, and the sheep move into it with renewed ease. The shepherd does not praise himself. He simply keeps leading. Goodness does not need applause to remain goodness. And so the song teaches the tired soul that next step trust is enough for tonight. You do not need the whole year. You do not need the whole explanation. You do not need certainty about every bend. The shepherd knows the path. He knows where your foot can land next. He knows what you cannot yet see. And his guidance does not disappear just because your understanding runs out. Let that rest somewhere in you now. The path beneath you for this moment is enough. The shepherd ahead of you for this moment is enough. You do not need to master the whole landscape tonight. The hills quiet under afternoon light. Dust settles behind the flock. The wind has softened. A kind of patient order has shaped the day. Pasture, water, path, pause, movement, shade, guidance. Life under the shepherd is not chaos, though parts of it are unseen. It is led. That difference matters, and as the sun inclines westward, the land begins another change. The open slopes give way, little by little, to a region where the earth folds inward. The grass is thin, rock rises higher on either side. Light gathers differently here, not broad and scattered, but angled, filtered, withheld in places where the walls of the land close around the path. The air cools sooner. Sound changes. Even the hooves of the flock seem to land with quieter care. This is the valley, not yet darkness, but the beginning of shadow. A place where the sun's reach narrows. A place where the ground demands more attention. A place where the flock instinctively draws closer, because the openness of the hills has given way to a corridor of stone and silence. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. The psalm does not pretend the valley is imaginary. It does not dismiss it with easy brightness. It names shadow. It admits that some stretches of the path feel enclosed, dim, uncertain, more dangerous than the pasture did. Some passages in life are like that. Grief is like that. Illness can be like that. Loneliness can be like that. The long waiting for an answer that does not come can be like that. Seasons in which joy feels far away and God feels quiet, and the old assurances sit in the mind without fully settling in the body. The valley belongs to the honest geography of the soul. But notice what the psalm does with the valley. It does not turn the valley into home. It becomes a place of passage. Though I walk through, not trapped in forever, not defined by the narrowness forever. Through. The flock enters with caution. The path is narrower now. Stones are larger. Shadows are longer. Sparse shrubs cling to the rock walls. A thread of water may once have cut this way in another season, leaving the ground uneven and carved. Above, the strip of visible sky is thinner. Light falls in slanted fragments. A sound from farther in echoes more than it would in the open. Everything invites alertness, and the shepherd draws nearer. There is a subtle change in his position. In the wide hills, he led at a comfortable distance ahead. Here, he is closer, turning more often, watching more carefully, keeping the flock tighter together. It is not because he has become afraid in some frantic way. It is because love adapts to the terrain. The darker the passage, the more palpable his nearness becomes. This is one of the most tender turns in the whole psalm. Until now, the language has mostly been about the shepherd. He leads me. He restores me. He guides me. But in the valley, it changes. You are with me. The psalmist stops speaking merely of God and begins speaking to him. Shadow presses the soul into direct address. What was known as truth becomes needed as presence. You are with me. Sometimes that is the whole prayer, not a polished confession, not a full theology, not a long explanation of what the valley means, just the direct nearness of second-person faith. You are with me, here, in this narrowing place, in this season I would not have chosen, in this fatigue, in this ache, in this fear I have not entirely mastered. You are with me. The flock's movement slows. A ewe pauses at a patch where the ground dips unexpectedly. The shepherd is beside her before panic can spread. He steadies her with a staff's length against the slope, giving both boundary and support. Another sheep brushes too close to the wall, where loose stones might slide. A hand, a turn, a redirection. Care in the valley is more visible, not because the shepherd was absent before, but because danger makes dependence easier to see. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. Even the tools of the shepherd gain tenderness here. The rod, a sign of defense. The staff, a sign of guidance and rescue. In careless hands, such objects might terrify. In faithful hands, they comfort. Their meaning depends on the character of the one who bears them. In a shepherd's grasp, strength is not a threat to the flock. It is a shelter for the flock. The valley bends. Around one turn, the light is dimmer still, held back by overhanging rock and thorn bushes leaning inward from above. The flock compresses more tightly. A few breaths quicken. Ears flick. Heads lift and lower. Fear is not a moral failure in such a place. It is a creature's awareness of limitation. But fear does not become master when the shepherd's presence is stronger than isolation. The sound of his staff on stone continues. Tap, step, tap, step. His voice comes low at intervals, not loud, not many words, but enough. The kind of voice one could follow in darkness. The kind of voice that carries not because it is harsh, but because it is known. Perhaps your own soul knows that difference. The world often shouts when you are afraid. Fear itself can shout. Memory can shout. Regret can shout. Imagination can shout. But the Lord's nearness often comes as a voice steady enough that the heart can follow without being driven. Not always dramatic, not always immediate in sensation, yet real. Faithful, sustaining. A narrow place opens briefly into a pocket where the valley floor widens, and some light from above spills down in a pale wash. The flock pauses there, grateful for room. The shepherd uses the moment to look carefully over them all. He has not merely gotten them into the valley, he intends to get them through. His attention does not grow lax because the middle part is difficult. If anything, it deepens. This is an important mercy. The Lord does not grow careless in the middle of your hard season. The valley does not occupy him less. His keeping does not thin when you need it most. The darker the path, the more the psalm insists. You are with me. One sheep bears an old mark at its side, a place where rough stone once grazed too hard. In the valley, the shepherd watches that weakness closely, anticipating where pain may flare again. This too belongs to the tenderness of God. He knows the places where prior wounds make present journeys harder. He remembers what bruises more easily in you. He sees where grief has thinned the skin of your soul, where betrayal has made trust more difficult, where loss has made the night colder. He does not treat all weakness as if it were identical. He attends. Farther in, the path narrows enough that the flock must move almost one by one. Shadows gather under jutting rock. The temperature falls. Sound becomes a hush with edges. Yet in such confinement, another mercy appears. The sheep can feel one another near. Shoulder to shoulder at times, breath close. A small flock held more tightly, because the valley allows no scattering. Hard places sometimes strip away illusions of self-sufficiency. They make companionship precious. They make the presence of God more than an idea. Somewhere above, beyond sight, wind passes through higher grass and sends a soft rush downward between the rocks. It sounds almost like water for a moment. Then quiet returns. The shepherd pauses, listening. Not because he is uncertain what to do, but because attention is part of protection. The flock waits with him. This too is trust. To stop when the shepherd stops. To move when the shepherd moves. To let his discernment become their safety. There are valleys in which the heart asks, not for brilliance, but for company, not for immediate explanation, but for someone to remain. Psalm 23 gives that. It does not say the valley is painless. It does not say the sheep never tremble. It says the shepherd is there. And sometimes the presence of God becomes clearest, not by removing the terrain at once, but by proving himself faithful within it. The flock moves again. A turn, a low passage, a wider patch, a descent over smoother rock, a careful climb, another bend. The valley is crossed by stages. Fear loosens the same way. Not always in a single instant, but as companionship becomes more substantial than the imagined loneliness of the place. The sheep learn with each step that they are not abandoned in shadow. Their bodies still feel the narrowness, but their panic does not get to decide the truth. This may be true for you as well. You may still feel the contours of the valley. You may still know what loss tastes like. You may still wake with fear close by. But fear is not the only reality in the passage. The shepherd is also real. His nearness is also here. His rod and staff still belong to your comfort, not your condemnation. His presence does not wait on the other side. It accompanies. A farther turn reveals a strip of light broader than before. Not sunlight in full, but the suggestion of opening. Air moves differently there. Less trapped. More spacious. The flock senses it. Their pace changes. Not frantic, but hopeful. The shepherd remains steady. He does not let the possibility of nearing the end turn into chaos. Good leaders know how to bring others out of difficulty without letting desperation wound them at the threshold of relief. As they near the wider mouth of the valley, the rock walls lower. Light pools on the ground in larger shapes. A few plants grow greener here where moisture lingers longer. The sound of the wind is less confined. The sheep begin to spread a little, though still close. The shepherd remains among them until the passage is truly open. He does not vanish at first hint of improvement. His care continues until safety is actually entered. And when at last the flock steps out onto gentler ground, the relief is quiet rather than triumphant. No shouting, no drama. Just the strange softness that comes after tension has had to hold too long. Breathing deepens, bodies release, heads lower. The sky above is wide again. The shepherd was enough in the valley, not only beyond it, not only before it, in it. Hold that gently now. The Lord is your shepherd in open pasture, yes. The Lord is your shepherd by still waters, yes. And the Lord is your shepherd where light narrows and fear grows close. The psalm does not deny your shadowed places. It places the shepherd inside them. A breeze comes over the emerging ground, carrying the scent of evening. The day has begun its descent now. Gold gathers in the west. The valley behind darkens more quickly than the land ahead. What was traversed remains behind as part of the journey, but not as the final chamber. The flock moves toward a place of rest. No one among them would choose the valley for pleasure. Yet there is a deepened trust in their movement now, something learned in narrowness that broad fields alone might not have taught. The shepherd's nearness in shadow has become part of their memory, and memory of his faithfulness becomes shelter for future nights. Perhaps that, too, is the Lord's gift. Not that he wastes your valleys, but that he meets you there so truly that even the hard places become places where his companionship is known more intimately. Not adored for their pain, not romanticized, but redeemed in part by the fact that you are not left there alone. The flock pauses on a rise beyond the valley where the earth is level enough for stillness. The shepherd stands among them, staff planted in the ground, gaze resting over the widening land ahead. The sky has become amber near the horizon. A bird circles once over a farther field. The world seems to exhale. You are with me. Let that be the heart's prayer now. Simple and whole. You are with me when I am tired. You are with me when fear has not fully gone. You are with me when I cannot see far. You are with me in the narrow place. You are with me in the shadow. And if that is true, then the valley does not own you. Evening draws closer. A warmth softer than noon settles over the land. The kind of gold that touches stone and wool and grass alike, and makes even worn things appear tender. The flock follows the shepherd across the gentler slope. No longer compressed by rock, they move with a quieter looseness now, like creatures whose nerves have found room again. Ahead, where the hillside dips and then rises toward a cluster of trees, there is another kind of shelter waiting. The path opens into a place prepared. It is not a grand hall, not a palace in the way earthly power would describe splendor, but the very atmosphere of the place carries welcome. A broad tree spreads long branches over level ground. Nearby, a low structure stands with walls of stone and wood, simple and sturdy, its doorway open to evening air. Lamps have begun to glow inside, their light warm and honey-colored against the deepening blue outside. A table has been set, not cluttered, not ostentatious, prepared. You prepare a table before me. The psalm shifts here from field and path to the language of welcome. And what a tender shift it is. After pasture and water, after guidance and valley, the soul is not only kept alive, it is received, not merely tolerated, not merely allowed to pass through. Received. The table is ready before the traveler arrives. That matters. Welcome has anticipated the coming need. Oil glints in a small vessel near one end. Bread rests in a woven basket. A cup catches the lamp's reflection. There is space enough. There is no sense of scrambling, no frantic last-minute making do. Preparation itself is a form of love. The one who prepares has been thinking of the one who will come. How many weary hearts ache for exactly this? Not just rescue from danger, but the feeling of being expected in kindness, of arriving to find that there is room, and that the room was made with you in mind, to be received without proving, to sit without argument, to exhale without earning. The shepherd guides the flock into a sheltered enclosure nearby, greener than many other places because a spring feeds the lower ground. The animals settle with the familiarity of those who know this place belongs to the rhythm of faithful care. Water is near again. Safe ground is near again. The shepherd has not only brought them through the valley, he has brought them homeward to welcome. And now, in the psalm's deepening imagery, the soul itself begins to step toward the table. Imagine the movement of coming in from a long day, dust on the feet, weariness in the limbs, the memory of shadow still faintly clinging to the body. And then, lamplight, wood warmed by many evenings, the quiet scrape of a chair drawn out, bread already broken enough to share, a cup waiting empty because it is about to be filled. No one asking you to explain why you are tired before you may sit down. Such images are not accidental in Scripture. God knows the language of embodied welcome. He knows what it means for the weary to need not only instruction, but hospitality. The table says, "You may stop wandering for this moment." The house says, "You may come inside." The lamp says, "Darkness is not all that is present." The oil says, "Your worn places will be tended." The overflowing cup says, "There is more than bare survival here. There is kindness that exceeds strict necessity." You anoint my head with oil. In the ancient world, oil soothed, refreshed, honored, healed. It softened what the day had dried. It touched what had been exposed to heat and dust and strain. There is tenderness in the image, a deeply personal form of care, not a distant provision laid out impersonally, but attention that comes near enough to touch the tired places. The shepherd who, guided by the path, also ministers in intimacy. What might it mean for your own soul tonight to receive that kind of care from God? Not merely concepts, not merely survival, but the quiet dignity of being tended. The places rubbed raw by grief, the thoughts overworked by anxiety, the inner life dried by long vigilance. The Lord's mercy does not only keep you from disaster, it also refreshes what the journey has worn thin. Inside the house, the lamplight is steady, not harsh. It pools on the tabletop, brightens the grain of wood, glows along the edges of clay vessels. Shadows remain, but they are gentle shadows now, the sort that make a room feel held rather than threatened. Outside, evening deepens. Crickets begin their soft, repeating song. The flock in the nearby enclosure grows quieter by degrees. The air through the doorway is cool and carries the scent of earth settling after a warm day. The cup is filled, then filled again. My cup overflows. Not the language of frantic excess, not a glittering display designed to impress, rather the calm astonishment of more than enough. The Lord's care does not always look extravagant by worldly standards, but it is never stingy in the deeper things. There is enough mercy for the day you have had, enough grace for the valley you crossed, enough steadiness for the uncertainty you still carry, enough welcome that fear need not sit at the head of the table anymore. Overflow in the kingdom of God often feels like quiet abundance, bread that satisfies, water that remains, lamplight through the evening, oil on worn skin, a place to sit, a name remembered, a cup filled beyond strict measurement, because love is not afraid of generosity. The table stands even in the presence of enemies. The psalm does not say every threat has ceased to exist. It says they do not govern the meal. This is part of the miracle. The soul learns to eat in peace while danger is not yet absent from the world. Welcome becomes stronger than intimidation. The presence of God becomes more defining than the awareness of opposition. The table is not set in fantasy. It is set under sovereignty. For a tired heart, this matters deeply. You may not be able to remove every adversary by nightfall. Not every fear disappears on command. Not every difficulty resolves before sleep. Yet the Lord is able to host you in peace, even while unfinished matters remain outside the door. Their existence does not abolish His welcome. Their noise does not cancel His provision. They do not get to overturn the table He has prepared. The room grows more still. A long sigh seems to move through it, though perhaps it is only the listener's own body recognizing, at last, the shape of enoughness. There is no rush to leave, no one checking a clock, no one asking for performance. The meal belongs to the hour. The hour belongs to the shepherd's kindness. Goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. The line turns the whole journey around. So often fear feels like the thing following us. Regret follows. Memory follows. Uncertainty follows. The shadow of what might go wrong follows. But here the psalm names a different companionship. Goodness and mercy, not one day only. Not occasional flashes, all the days. Days of green pasture. Days of valley shadow. Days of ordinary labor. Days of aching prayer. Days when the soul feels bright. Days when it feels bruised. Goodness and mercy follow because the shepherd's care does not end at the table. Imagine them, not as abstractions, but as faithful companions just behind you on the road. Goodness, not naive optimism, but the active kindness of God seeking your real welfare. Mercy, not vague tenderness, but steadfast love meeting your need again and again where you are frail. They follow, not to crowd you, but to ensure you are not chased only by fear. The old pursuers do not get the road to themselves anymore. Outside, the sky is darker now, indigo deepening toward night. Lamps burn more warmly in the house. The air grows cooler. Somewhere near the spring, water moves with the low sound of continual small faithfulness, not drawing attention to itself, only remaining. The shepherd has taken his place not far off. Even at the table, he is not absent. The one who led is still the one who keeps. And I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. The psalm ends, not with mere escape, but with belonging. Not simply with relief, but with dwelling. There is such peace in that word, dwell. Not visit briefly in uncertainty, not stand at the threshold, wondering whether you will be asked to leave. Dwell, remain. Be at home. The soul that has known wandering, striving, shadow, thirst, and fear is finally given not only care for the road, but a home with God. This is more than one evening's rest, though it includes that. It is the deep promise that the end of the shepherd's work is not perpetual exile. It is communion, nearness, house, home. The life of God made shelter for those who trust Him. What would it mean for your heart tonight to hear not only that God can help you survive, but that He intends to keep you near? That His care is not a temporary emergency measure only, but the shape of an eternal welcome. That the deepest truth of your life, if the Lord is your shepherd, is not abandonment, but belonging. The table remains before you in warm light. The cup remains near your hand. Oil has softened what the day made rough. Outside, the flock has settled. Inside, the room feels safe enough for silence. Not the sharp silence of emptiness, but the full silence of peace after enough has been given. The journey of the psalm begins to gather inward now. Fold, pasture, water, path, valley, table, house. Not a rushed sequence, but a slow schooling of the heart in what it means to be kept. You were not told to become your own shepherd. You were led, fed, restored, guided, accompanied, welcomed, given a place to remain. And perhaps now the soul can cease a little from argument. Perhaps now the mind can stop circling every gate. Perhaps now the body can believe what the psalm has been whispering all along. You are not making this journey alone. And you never were. The lamps burn lower as the night deepens. Shadows in the room grow softer still. The table is no longer the site of active eating, but of after rest, after enough, after the quiet abundance of being received. Outside, the stars have returned, as they did over the fold at the beginning, but they seem gentler now. The shepherd who watched at the gate is the shepherd who welcomes at the table and keeps in the house. His care has changed its setting through the psalm, but not its heart. So let the house of the Lord become, for this moment, not only a future promise, but a present atmosphere. Let it be the place where your striving loosens. Let it be the place where your fear no longer gets the first word. Let it be the place where your loneliness is met by presence. Let it be the place where your weary soul hears, perhaps more deeply than before, that belonging to God is safer than you knew. Not because you have no enemies, not because you have explained every valley, not because you have become spiritually flawless, but because the Lord is your shepherd. The room grows very still now, the kind of stillness in which a prayer can be spoken simply. So let us pray. Lord, my shepherd, thank you for staying near through every part of this journey. Thank you for being gentle with the weary, for leading the thirsty, for guiding the uncertain, and for remaining close in every shadowed place. Tonight, quiet what still feels restless in me. Lay down what I do not need to carry through the night. Tend the worn places in my heart, and let your presence become more real than my fear. Give rest to my mind, softness to my body, and peace to my soul. Keep watch while I sleep, and let me rest beneath your faithful care. In Jesus' name, amen. Now the prayer grows quiet, and nothing more needs to be solved here. The lamp is low, the room is warm, the shepherd remains. You do not have to keep watch over your whole life tonight. The Lord is your shepherd. Let that truth become simpler now. Not larger, not more complicated, simpler. The Lord is your shepherd. He is near in the fold, near in the pasture, near on the path, near in the valley, near at the table, near in the house, near here in this very night, while you grow sleepy and the edges of thought soften. The Lord is your shepherd, so your shoulders may rest a little more heavily into the place beneath you. Your breathing may become unhurried. The mind does not have to run the hills. It does not have to stand at every gate. It does not have to walk ahead into tomorrow and report back. The shepherd is already there before thought arrives, and he is here before fear finishes speaking. The Lord is your shepherd, and because he is, you are not alone in this night. Not alone with your memories, not alone with your tiredness, not alone with what remains unfinished, not alone with the part of you that still trembles a little. Not alone. Only rest now beneath his keeping. Let the room be quiet. Let the night be gentle. Let the last strain ease. The shepherd remains, and under his care you may sleep.